You know, that's what makes this kind of pain so disorienting. You're already aware. They've shown you, in some way, that the wanting isn't mutual. Maybe they stated it outright. Maybe their silence was just as clear. Either way, it's clear to you. You know it's done. The wanting doesn't seem to mind. When you really consider what it signifies, grief becomes manageable. Not over, but finally progressing. You know it's over. The wanting doesn't care. When you trace what it's pointing to, the grief feels manageable. Not ended, just finally advancing. And you still desire them. Not in a clueless manner. Not because you're unsure about the situation. You want them, fully aware of the truth, which somehow feels worse than wanting without knowing. You can hold the thought that they don't want you while still wanting them at the same time, and neither idea cancels out the other. Most advice assumes the issue stems from uncertainty. People say to seek clarity, but you already have that clarity. It hasn't solved anything. Wanting operates separately from what you know, and this independence, this refusal to listen to logic, makes things so hard to navigate. You're not stuck due to a lack of information. You're stuck because wanting is not an argument. Feelings can't be reasoned away. Why you still desire them? The real mechanism. The simple answer is you loved them or still do, and love takes time to fade. That part is true to an extent. Yet it doesn't fully capture this. Those intrusive thoughts, the need to check in, that distinct sense of longing that resurfaces just when you think you've moved on. What's going on is also neurological. When you desire someone who sometimes reciprocates, someone who seemed close to it, or who gave just enough to keep the wanting alive, your brain's reward system has been trained on a variable reinforcement schedule. This is the same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive. The unpredictability of rewards fuels motivation rather than dampening it. A slot machine that pays out randomly is more engaging than one that pays every time, because that uncertainty keeps the desire alive. If they were occasionally warm, sometimes available, or close to what you needed, your brain learned to keep wanting in those gaps. Those gaps are where the conditioning resides. Wanting in those gaps isn't irrational. It's the conditioned reaction to a pattern your nervous system absorbed. There's also the matter of what exactly you were yearning for. It's rarely just the person. It's often about the version of yourself that felt possible around them, the vibrancy of their early interest, the way it felt to be noticed, or almost noticed, by someone whose regard seemed significant. When that vanishes, you lose more than just them. You lose that sense of self that thrived in their presence. You're seeking that feeling, not just the person. And understanding this distinction is important because it shapes what needs to happen next. This isn't professional advice. If what you're carrying feels heavy or persistent, talking to a qualified therapist might be beneficial. What moving on truly entails. Most advice on moving forward revolves around removal. Delete them from your phone. Unfollow them on social media. Remove triggers, reminders, and shared spaces. Create distance. Keep busy. Let time do its thing. None of these suggestions are wrong, but they focus on the external factors instead of the internal struggle. You can eliminate every external reminder and still feel the wanting, because it isn't stored in your phone or the places you visited together. It resides in your nervous system. It's a learned behavior that persists even in the absence of what it was directed toward. Genuine moving on requires 3 things that most advice ignores. First, finish what was left open. The wanting sticks around often because something between you went unresolved. Not the relationship itself, the loop. The things left unspoken. The answers you never got. The versions of events that remain unclear. Your mind keeps that file active because it's waiting for closure that won't come from them. Closing that loop means finding a way to provide your own closure. Not by pretending everything's resolved, but by giving yourself an ending. Second, grieve the self, not just the person. The version of you that thrived around them. The one who felt that unique sense of aliveness and possibility. needs distinct grieving apart from them. Many people overlook this step. They mourn the relationship and wonder why something still hurts. What hurts is the self-experience available then that's not accessible elsewhere. Identifying this specifically makes it easier to process than vague longing. And lastly, update your nervous system with new insights. Your body learned that this person, or this type of person, was worthy of desire. It won't unlearn that simply through knowledge. It requires the gradual experience of something different. This doesn't necessarily mean a new relationship, just enough new evidence that the world has other sources for what you were after. This shift takes time, often more time than expected, and happens quietly. But it's the true process of change. The different textures of still wanting. This isn't just a single feeling. It's a mix, layered together, and they need acknowledgement before you can move through them. The intrusive thought that pops up uninvited. You could be in a meeting, cooking, or having a great day when they suddenly appear in your mind, out of nowhere, like no time has passed. Their unexpected presence brings back the fullness of that wanting. The intrusive nature of these thoughts doesn't mean you're failing to move on. It indicates that the neural pathway remains well worn. Pathways don't close through avoidance. They close as new ones gradually form and get more traversed. The comparison that diminishes everything else. The fantasy lingering just below the surface. It's not always conscious, but it's there. The version of events where they decide to come back, where something changes, and you end up in the happy ending you desire. The fantasy isn't a sign of delusion. It demonstrates that your attachment system is still running the same program from when the wanting was alive. That program won't end automatically. It continues until something new comes along. The specific grief of an ordinary Tuesday. Not the anniversaries or expected trigger days. You can see those coming. It's the grief that hits on a random Tuesday afternoon when nothing significant is going on. You could feel fine, then suddenly not fine for 20 minutes, and eventually be fine again. This actually shows progress, even if it doesn't feel like progress. Grief moving into ordinary days shows it's metabolizing. That random Tuesday grief isn't regression. It's a sign that something is slowly completing. What you're really asking when you want them back. Underneath that wanting often lies a question. It may not be fully conscious, but it's there. A question the wanting seeks to answer. Sometimes it's, was I enough? The wanting lingers because their desire for you back would resolve that question. The problem with waiting for that confirmation is that it puts the answer in their hands. And they've already given it, in the only way they could. Sometimes it's, was it real? If it mattered to them, then it was a real connection that ended. If it didn't, then you were alone in something you thought was mutual, a different kind of loss, which can feel harder. The wanting stays because it keeps that question open. If you stop wanting them, you have to confront one of those answers. Sometimes it's, who am I without this? The relationship or nearly relationship crafted a narrative. There was a future built, even if it only existed in your mind. Without that, there's a gap in identity. The wanting fills that gap for a time, keeping that unrealized life alive longer, because facing the alternative feels like restarting everything. These questions are worth your attention. Not from them, they can't provide the answers you seek, but from you, where that wanting has been living. What tracking this pattern reveals over time. When people begin to honestly document when their wanting is strongest, what came before it, and what context it exists in, things become clearer. This longing isn't constant. It has peaks and valleys. It's loudest on certain days or in specific emotional states after particular interactions. It's loudest when feeling depleted, isolated, or in situations that trigger old feelings of inadequacy. It's quietest when you're engaged with something that brings you back to yourself, not distracted from wanting, but genuinely present in your own life. That pattern provides insight. The wanting isn't solely about them. It indicates something else is missing from your current life that you've been unconsciously projecting onto them. Noticing what activates that longing shows it isn't continuous. It spikes in response to specific states of being. Once you can recognize those states clearly, the wanting becomes manageable. Not because it disappears, but because you can see what it's really pointing to. You can tend to the actual need instead of continually returning to someone who briefly seemed to fulfill it. What documenting this reveals over time is not that you desired the wrong person. It's about the shape of what you were seeking, specific enough to eventually find elsewhere. What "without pretending you're fine" really means. The instruction to not pretend is tougher than it sounds. Not because pretending feels nice, it doesn't, but because the alternative means navigating social interactions that most people aren't ready to handle. People tend to want you to be further along than you are. Not out of malice, more from their discomfort. Your lingering not fineness extends beyond what feels reasonable, prompting people to offer solutions. The advice often aims to manage their unease with your ongoing pain. It's not designed for your current experience. Not pretending doesn't mean broadcasting that you want them back. It's about not playing along with the recovery you haven't achieved. It means not confirming you're over it when you aren't. It's about not speeding up your healing process to accommodate others' comfort with your grief. Rushed grief goes unnoticed. It doesn't resolve, it just shifts. You think you've moved on, only to be blindsided 6 months later by a small trigger that brings back all those feelings, leaving you confused about what happened to the progress you thought you'd made. That progress was just performed, not genuine. Real healing is slower, less linear, and often seems less impressive from the outside. Being honest about where you're at honors the real process. It keeps grief accessible, allowing it to move, rather than pushing it down where it hardens. What changes, and when it's not about a single moment? Not a conversation, not a specific day you can point to beforehand. What shifts is a ratio. Days when they're the first thought in your mind become slightly less frequent. The random Tuesday grief periods shorten a bit. The comparisons with new people feel slightly less automatic. The intrusive thoughts still appear, but they carry a tad less heaviness than they did a month ago. None of this feels like progress while it's ongoing. It only becomes visible in hindsight, when you notice one regular morning that you went 2 days without thinking of them, and that realization doesn't immediately bring back the wanting. That moment will arrive silently. You won't have done anything drastically different to achieve it. It will come, quietly, a result of all the unquantifiable, invisible work of grieving something real, without rushing, without downplaying its significance. The wanting doesn't completely disappear. It transforms into something you can manage without being overwhelmed by it. And that's what makes a difference. And that's enough.